Okay, let's go.
It says it's playing live. It's not that long, so I don't know what's going on with it. Whatever. Hopefully I didn't screw up my own thing here. But anyways, what's going on, everybody? I don't even have my my script up. I started prematurely. This is my fault. I am so sorry about this, everybody. Go delete all that. And then I gotta scroll down 71 pages. Let's see. Boom. Take all this. Takes a second. Sorry, guys. Bam. Sorry about that. I don't know what got into me. My foot. There goes. Did I really just do that? Okay. Teleprompter mode. There goes. Boom. So, welcome back, everybody. It has been over a month since I last recorded. Why have I been gone? Well, I've been processing some information that hits me pretty hard. It's just personal stuff that I can either say or don't have to say. I don't really care to say. You know what? I'm going to tell y'all. My daughter has decided to join the military. I'm proud of her, but it came out of nowhere, so it's just been an adjustment for me. It hit me a lot harder than I anticipated. But oh well, right? She's just like me. She's our emotional department where we process. We just process and move on. We're like, okay, cool. That's just how life is for us. But now that one hit me, but I'm over it now. Can't wait to get her out of the house now. Yeah, so we're emotionally distant from the rest of the family. Except from each other. That's a different thing. I don't know what happened. But anyways, out of the serious stuff. We're done with that already. But back to what you really came for. This episode is over something that I've stayed away from for a minute due to having so many episodes coming back to back. And I'm talking about cartels. Now, a couple months ago, I did have an episode come out for cartels, and it was back to back to back. It was like 3 or 4 episodes that were really close together. So I decided to take a break because it's, even though I'm so small as a podcast and as a quote unquote influencer, I tread lightly with those guys. So this is what we're going to talk about. But we're not just going to talk about the cartels themselves. I don't think I've ever done an episode about them themselves. I've done an episode about their actions. I think I'm going to do that one day, is go do a deep dive over who they are, what motivated them, and how they started. That's going to be later on, though. I don't want to get ahead of myself. This episode is over, as the title says, Sicarios. And Sicarios are assassins. They're the hired hands. But before we get into all that, first updates and news, like always. First update, I'm back on all my socials. Kind of. I've been neglecting TikTok a little bit. I've been more on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, a lot more. I'm going to get back onto TikTok this week. Promise. Back onto all that stuff. And I am looking for a co-host. So if you know somebody or if you're interested, send me a message on any of my socials. We'll get you in. If you listen to any of my other episodes where I have guests, I usually let them run the thing because I just tell them like, okay, this is behind the scenes. So whenever I have a guest, I will call them or message them, however I get a hold of them, either through email or Discord or however they prefer, right? And we'll organize something. And I'll give them a list. Like, this is the episodes that I have done so far. Toothpick. These are the episodes I've done so far. So what would you like to go over? Do you have a ghost story you want to tell? Do you have such and such, such and such? I try not to go over the same thing multiple times, but I've done some Salvadorian ghost stories twice back to back. That's because I did an episode with a Salvadorian co-host, which was the My Primos podcast. So there's that, so I let them take the lead to have more to be better for them. That way they're not jumping into water that they don't know about. Like, why would I talk to like a Brazilian co-host about Salvadorian folklore? Like, it's not going to make sense. There might be some similarities, but they're not going to know the stories. And that's what I'm looking for. I want the personal connection of the stories. And through all my episodes, whether it's been with Shining Nathan or Latinos Against Spooky Shit, Kukui Paranormal, who is now on her own now, or the Alpha Primos podcast or the My Primos podcast, I always let them run their own thing. So, and that my Primos podcast, the Alpha Primos podcast was one of my funnest ones. We had a great time talking horror movies. It was a little different than what I'm used to, but that was a fun one. So, again, if you're interested, reach out on any of my socials. That's the rundown, right? So, as for news, I really don't want to talk too much about the news. I don't, because last time I talked about the news, I got comments on YouTube. I have thick skin, so it doesn't bother me at all, but it can be a snowball effect, and I don't want to spend my entire day answering all the negative comments. Why? Because I know myself. I would try to answer every single negative comment with a snarky remark because I don't care. I have the time of day to do this. So I will make time if I have to. I have two phones. I have my phone, and then I have the iPhone that I use for short videos because, I'm not getting into that, but iPhone's cameras are the same throughout all their brands. So whenever I'm getting into it, so whenever companies like Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, um, YouTube, whenever they program their cameras and their systems and their hardware and their software for everyone and the programming, it's specially coded for iPhones. That's why everyone's like, "Oh, you get better quality on it." No, technically, by like the tiniest bit of a hair, you get better quality on an Android, but it appears better quality because it's more receptive to the information. So that's that whole thing. So I got two phones just for that. And if I can't use one, I will use the other one to message and keep the thing going. Most times they message like 2 or 3 times. I've learned how to keep them away by telling them, if you message back, I know you're a fan. And they stop messaging. They're like, nope. So, anyways, so for this episode, I was going to have a co host for this episode, but I overslept and he bailed because he's an ass. It's a buddy of mine, so I can say that. So I organized it with them. He said Saturday, 10:30. I woke up at noon. That's my bad. So I've been doing better though. So I'm going to try to get another co host. So let's get started today, tonight, or whatever time you listen to this. We are talking about Sicarios. So for those of you that don't know, a Sicario is a hitman or hired gun for the cartels. And not just the cartels, also for the mafia, any organization that a hired gun can be called a Sicario. And the best ones have never been caught. Of course, they're not going to be known. There's a story about the Iceman who was for the mafia, and his family thought he was an insurance salesman, and he was an old man by the time they finally caught him. And every time he'd go on a business trip, that'd be him going out on a hit. So it's the most unassuming people you'll ever see. There's one that had a podcast, or was it a show on YouTube? I think it was a podcast. But he retired, served his time, and now that's what he does. I think he recently passed away. So, but as long as there has been organized crime, there has been Sicarios, the Latin root Sicarus, which stands for dagger man. Beyond that, there's no real backstory, no in-depth analysis. It's just a hired hand. First, we'll start with someone who was caught on the side of the border, on this side of the border. Just a heads up, there's tough subjects ahead, so be warned. So, yeah, there's tough subjects ahead. It's Sicarios, so we're talking about people being murdered and things like that. The last one that we talk about, I will give a second warning because it gets kind of brutal. I don't get graphic on the details, but it is brutal. So, your heads up, and there will be a secondary heads up like, hey, it's about, I'm about to tell you what this guy did. So be careful, please. If, just be careful. So to all the influencers that think that the cartels cannot get you, think twice. This was an unassuming 50-year-old man. He got caught. His name is Jose Manuel Martinez, otherwise known as La Mano Negra, the Black Hand. 50 years old is when he finally got caught, and he was still doing crimes. He was born in 1968 in Fresno, California. He grew up rough, spending his childhood in Mexico, where he saw firsthand the struggle of the migrant worker in the fields. But at the same time, he also saw the hidden world of the cartels. His stepfather was a drug trafficker who was convicted in 1977 and spent time in prison as a teen. As a teen, he was back in the streets in 1978. Tragedy struck. His sister was sexually assaulted and murdered. I told you, it gets, there's some information in here, This tragedy led him down the path of being a Sicario. At the age of 16, he hunted down the three men who he believed were responsible for his sister's death. He killed all three of them and buried them one on top of the other in a shallow grave. So at 16, he got his first kill, and at the age of 17 in October 21st, 1980, he truly became a Sicario by completing his first contract kill. 23-year-old David Bedolla in a drive-by shooting. So that was his first contract kill. So at this point, he has 4 bodies to his name. After that, he was now the Black Hand. As for the nickname, it was given to him by an old man that saw him practice his shooting skills. So he shot so much that his hand would turn black with how much he shot. Or at least that's what he told him. That's what the old man was like. That's why I call him that. So the Black Hand was his moniker. He never used the same gun twice. He left it to whoever contracted him to supply his gun, making it harder to identify who was the shooter. So if you hired him, you had to give him a gun, and that's the one he used. And after that, the next kill, a new gun. So you can imagine how hard it is for the police to take samples and compare who shot who. So as far as they know, these are all random shootings. His MO is that he would watch his targets, learning their every move. He's also given a bodyguard, which allows him to better study his targets without having to watch his back. In one job, he studied a target for a week straight. So by the time he was caught, he had a considerable rap sheet, mostly drug trafficking and probation violations, but nothing violent. He had somehow managed to stay under the radar from police. So his whole thing is he watches you for a week and then he's going to get you. He wants to learn your schedule so you don't know when it's going to happen. You're going to get caught off guard. He's going to find you at the most vulnerable moment. And by the time he was caught, it was all just it was drug trafficking and probation. Nothing violent. So they didn't even know they had a hitman. As far as the authorities were concerned, the one responsible was essentially a ghost Sicario. For 3 decades, this ghost was a threat, but no one knew who it was. For him, the contracts were just a way to make money, as any contract killer makes money. He wrote in 2018 that the real money came from collecting drugs and money from his targets, whether it be from what he could take or collecting debts. So he was basically an enforcer Sicario. So if you saw him, you either owed money or that was it. That was the last time you saw him because you wouldn't see anyone else. When he was caught and the truth finally came out about what he had done, he did not reveal any of his partners, who they were or who his employers were. He even kept the locations of the bodies a secret. When asked, he told detectives that he was not their teacher. He's like, I'm not here to teach y'all this stuff. Y'all need to figure it out. He became more agitated when asked about cartels. During an interview, he denied involvement. Enough questions, he eventually revealed that he did in fact know Joaquin El Chapo Guzman, which is the cartel in Mexico, one of the biggest cartels. At the time, it was the biggest. Yeah, his involvement from Alabama to Florida. His involvement was minimal, to say the least. He did not freelance. He did freelance work for the Sinaloa cartel. He mainly did enforcement work for them, collecting debts in the U.S. When he was arrested, he wrote in his unpublished memoirs that the state of Sinaloa has lost its best hitman. He also wrote about his employer, Mr. X, having a meeting with El Chapo where they spoke for an hour. At the time, El Chapo was not famous. He was just a rich guy with 3 bodyguards. He didn't become famous till he escaped El Puente prison. He once wrote that he left bodies everywhere: rivers, lakes, trucks, roads, orange fields, grape fields, anywhere you can think of, he left a body there. El Mano Negra's bloody reign began with revenge and ended with retaliation. And the Ruiz case. Everything in between were sanctioned hits or contract jobs. He was charged in 2014 to 50 years in prison. California extradited him right after the trial had ended. California officially charged him with 9 counts of first-degree murder and 1 attempted murder. They were also put under special circumstances, including lying in wait, kidnapping, and murder for financial gain. With all his charges taking place in 3 counties, they decided to put it all into one trial. His final sentence was 10 consecutive life sentences. If all his claims are true, then That leaves 23 unsolved murders. That's a lot, right? I was looking for something. Oh, well. So that's 23 unsolved murders that could be potentially for his name. So all they got him for was, where'd it go? 9 counts of first-degree murder. Yeah, they got him for a bunch of stuff, but they still have 23 cases. So the next one is kind of touchy because supposedly talking bad about this guy has caused some social media influencers to go missing. And that's a big problem for me. I don't want to go missing. There have been rumors that talking about this next gentleman has caused content creators to go missing. That's why I'm going to be vague as to the names of the content creators. If you want to figure it out, Google it yourself. I'm not telling you who they are. But I'm talking about Nestor Isidro Perez Salas. He is the senior leader of El Chapito's security apparatus. And Los Chapitos are the sons of El Chapo. Under his direction, his group of Sicarios protected Los Chapitos, who are none other than El Chapo's sons. They intimidated civilians, captured territories, demolished uncooperative businesses, and attacked and murdered law enforcement. They regularly used military-grade weapons and explosives, everything from machine guns and rocket launchers. They had been known to kidnap, torture, and kill anyone who opposed them. Now, I'm not just throwing accusations. I'm getting all my information from justice.gov. So this is from official documents. I got to preface that. I don't throw allegations. I don't throw what ifs. I don't say this is what they might have. No. This is what they did. So I respect the Sinaloa cartel. Because I'm not going to lie. In Mexico, things were a lot peaceful when they were in charge. So El Chapo goes missing and gets arrested and is in prison in a maximum security prison in Colorado or New York, one of those two places. And Mexico's been at the hands of the cartels ever since. So that's my 2 cents. And I've gone on this rant many times before. Salas also committed various acts himself for Los Chapitos. In 2017, I got a message. Sorry, I got a message and I was like, oh, I got a message. I'm going to mark this because I'm going to clip this out. Hey, what's going on? Sorry about that. I was in the middle of reading. But I'll have my live stream chat up if y'all want to talk to me. I'll probably leave this in there too. I don't know. Anyways, Salas also committed various acts himself for Los Chapitos in 2017 with the help of Los Chapitos. He captured and interrogated 2 federales and killed them. Then they captured 3 rival drug cartels, tortured, electrocuted them, then killed them. Then that same year conspired to kill a witness and informant against them. By 2022, Salas was testing the potency of their fentanyl on random people. One such woman was tested till she OD'd. In 2022, he sold the largest amount of fentanyl that was later seized by the DEA. He owned his own labs. 3 of his cooks died because of the produce that they made was too potent. So they made fentanyl so strong that it killed the people who made it. The latest thing that he was charged with was kidnapping a DEA confidential source and 10 other victims, including a U.S. citizen. He and his team of Sicarios did this because of the information that the informant was leaking. I'm going to list all the charges here, so bear with me. There's about 10 charges. Out of SDNY, continuing criminal enterprise. This is one of the charges. Continuing criminal enterprise resulting in death, conspiracy to import of fentanyl, conspiracy to sell, using, carrying, and possessing a machine gun, money laundering, obstruction of justice against an informant, conspiracy to obstruct justice against an informant, kidnapping resulting in death, and conspiracy to commit kidnapping resulting in death. Those are those charges. There's a couple more charges on that. 3 charges, narcotic, dangerous drug section, conspiracy to import coke and meth, another machine gun charge, and another obstruction charge. So that's what he got. That's what he got hit with, right? So let's break it down real quick. Perez Salas isn't just looking at a long sentence. He's facing multiple life sentences at this point. We're talking about mandatory life behind bars for murder, drug trafficking, machine guns, and even kidnapping a minor. If the judge stacks these charges, that's life plus 100 years. No chance of parole, no second chances. This is the kind of case that feels more like a show, like the show Narcos, than real life. But it's very real. This is what happens on the underbelly that you see on TV. Now, this is real. So a lot of that stuff is real. Yeah, whoever's in there left. Now, we're going to go away from Mexico for a bit and move to Colombia. And I'm going to go over a few of Pablo Escobar's Sicarios. Remember, Sicarios are not just a Mexican cartel thing. The word spreads to all types of organizations, from the mafia to the cartels to anything where you can hire a hand. First one up is Carlos. I got a message again. What the? Oh, nothing. Wait, nothing. What does this do? Yeah, no, I don't want that. I got to change that because that doesn't even exist anymore. Anyways, first one up is Carlos Mario Alzate Urquijo, a.k.a. Arrete. Unlike most Sicarios that once their boss is arrested or killed, this guy kept working. So most times when their boss is done, they kind of like fade out and retire. The Medellin may be gone, but their effects can still be felt. The culture of violence that they created, that was created by this organization, is still felt to this day. Carlos was Pablo Escobar's shadow. As the organization grew, so did he, eventually assuming a role within the organization. Not just as a Sicario running his own operation, which took responsibility for the attack on Colombia's former intelligence building, to the attempted bombing of a plane mid-flight. Once he surrendered, he was placed in prison in Colombia's Itagua and La Picore prisons. But in 2001, he was released. He still had enemies, and they found him in prison and attacked him, leaving him almost dead. The government released him and exiled him with protection. So they released him with protection and they exiled him. They said, "No, you can't live here no more." So he went to Spain with his family. You'd think that would be the end of it. It is not. Colombia is still looking for him because they want him to answer for other crimes that have come to light. So they released him, and now they're like, "Wait a minute, you did other things. We got to take care of this next." They can't find him, though. And that's him. Now let's move on to the next one. Next up is Dandines Muñoz Mosquera, a.k.a. La Cuica. He was the child of a policeman and a Christian pastor with 14 siblings. Out of all his siblings, 2 of them are believed to have been a part of Escobar's hit squad. So 3 members of that family all worked for Pablo Escobar. He resided in the northern part of Medellin, where most recruits came from. At least 5 of his brothers were killed in a period of unrest by either police or the violence that was caused by the cartels. In 1991, he fled to the U.S. due to fearing for his life in Colombia. He did not stop committing crimes. He kept at it for another 6 years. He was not caught for these crimes, nor was he taken down due to the documentation. He was not caught for these crimes, but he was taken down due to documentation, carrying and handling false documents. So he didn't get caught for being a hitman or doing some crazy things. No, he got caught because he had fake paperworks. Don't have fake paperwork. Out of all the hitmen that were believed to have been involved with the Avianca plane bombing, he was the only one convicted. Remember this. I mentioned this later again. The Avianca plane bombing, he was the only one else convicted. He was convicted in the U.S. on these charges for killing an American citizen. The Colombian government did not prosecute him for his involvement, despite surmounting evidence of him killing dozens of police officers and members of the security forces. In an interview in 2013, La Cuica told a Colombian news outlet that he never worked or had ever met Pablo Escobar, claiming his innocence. He has been in prison for over 30 years, serving 10 life sentences. Despite all of this, there is no clear evidence that he participated in the bombings of the Avianca plane that killed 110 people in 1989. His lawyers claims that the U.S. government has used him as a scapegoat in their fight against the cartels. So it's a conspiracy for some, right? Some people think that it's a conspiracy. Well, we know the truth. I doubt it. Sicarios are this is what I do, and I'm not going to tell on myself. Because if they do, then they can connect who else was with them and all that other stuff, and then more people get taken down. That's not what they do. Lastly, we're going to talk about, for the Colombian cartels, Luis Carlos Aguilar, a.k.a. El Mugre. He was first linked in documents that show him as part of buying a plane to transport cocaine in 1989. It is believed that he was a part of the cartel before that, though. It is thought that he was one of the most trusted members in the organization. There's a running theme here. Any Sicario is usually trusted and moved up higher within the organization. Why? Because they've proven themselves as loyal. They kill, they don't get caught, they're trusted. They're like, this guy's good. We're going to keep him. And then they start getting moved up, and eventually they stop doing Sicario work and they start doing boss work. They're like running organizations, helping plan heists and crap like that. That's what they do. Accounts from another individual known as Popeye states that El Mugre was Escobar's soccer partner at Hacienda Napoles. Like most hitmen, they came from poor neighborhoods and were attracted to the money that was offered to them for their services. El Mugre was imprisoned in the Cathedral, a well-known prison. It's the one Pablo Escobar escaped from, proving that the Colombian jail system was inadequate, embarrassing the country. El Mugre is thought to have helped in his escape, though. In 1992, he turned himself in to avoid his enemies. After 9 years, he disappeared from the public eye. So once he got out, he disappeared. Popeye has stated that he lives in Spain as a priest after his daughter died. So he moved to Spain, his daughter passes away, he becomes a priest. That's a crazy transformation, right? From killing people to blessing people. Now I'm going to cover the Avianca plane bombing from 1989. I just mentioned it a couple times, right? If you've watched the show Narcos, then you've seen or you know what I'm talking about. This took place 36 years ago. Flight 203 fell from the sky. The flight was heading to Cali from Bogota when tragedy struck. The flight was a domestic service that originated from El Dorado International Airport. The airport is the main one for the capital and is still a key hub for travel, especially for Avianca. That's still a company that still exists to this day. A little background on the plane itself. It was a Boeing 727-200, call sign HK-1803, built in 1966. It was an ex-Pan Am trijet that joined Avianca 14 years before the tragedy struck. That's a lot of information, right? There's some people out there that like that kind of stuff, so I went into detail, right? On board, it had 101 passengers, 6 crew members. So it said 110, but You'll get the numbers in a minute, right? So that's 107 people. There's 3 people missing. Those 3 people come up later. So imagine this. It's 7 a.m. You get onto your plane, you're seated down, you buckle up, and the plane takes off. 5 minutes later, as it's climbing to its cruising altitude, it's at 13,000 feet above sea level. And right as you're about to level off, you hear a sudden explosion, and then you're just plummeting. You're done. Well, that's what happened. There was a bomb placed in seat 14F near the empty tank fuselage. So it had enough fuel to get there, and it was light enough to where it would have worked, right? I don't know why there was an empty fuselage. I don't know about planes. I don't fly. But this is what caused the main problem. The empty fuel tank had fumes that ignited and caused the fire to break out on the right side of the plane. This was noted by eyewitnesses from the ground before a second explosion broke the plane apart in mid-flight. At this point, there is a 3-mile wide debris zone near the municipality of Soacha. In total, 107 people died, as well as 3 people on the ground due to falling debris. That's your 110 people. This is Colombia's second deadliest airplane disaster, currently ranked 4th. There has been speculation that the Medellin cartel was involved. It was believed that it was a faulty fuel pump. No, there was speculation that the Medellin cartel was not involved. It was believed that it was a faulty fuel pump, but in 1994, the guy, one or two guys above, right? In 1994, a member of the cartel was handed 10 life sentences for the bombing, amongst other charges. So that's what happened, right? I know I seem excited because, this is a lot of information. These guys are all being caught, charged, some of them are out doing regular people shit. But yeah, so time to get serious, for me at least. The whole episode's a serious episode, but still. The last one I'm going to go over, or the last one I'm going to cover, I could easily just clip the audio from another episode. But I'm not going to do that. I'm going to talk about Los Zetas and the Sicarios that were in Allende, Coahuila. Now, if y'all have watched or listened to this podcast long enough, I've talked about this many times. It is the dark day in Allende. It was the DEA that had a leak of information and it caused an entire town to suffer. It's episodes back. It was before I did video, I believe. So there's that, right? And it's 2 parts. You got to find the first part. The first part's way back. It's one of the first episodes I did. The massacre that was caused due to the leak in the intelligence systems. This is also why I always say that content creators should never taunt the cartels. They're in the government. They found out from the government that this happened. Why do I do this? Why do I speak about this stuff? I speak about this because I speak only facts. I'm not taunting them. I'm not calling them out. I'm telling stories about things that have happened to the individuals that have been caught. I am not looking for somebody new like, oh, this guy's supposed. No. I don't do that because I don't want them coming after me. I don't care where I live. They can get to you. So all the information I pull is credible. No allegations. So the Sicario I'm talking on this one is named Marciano Milan Vasquez, a top dog within the cartel, currently serving 7 life sentences. The charges include aiding and abetting the commission of multiple murders and other acts of violence, drug trafficking, and weapons trafficking in northern Mexico, and furtherance of a drug distribution system. So those are a lot of charges. Those are big boy charges. Attorney Richard L. Durbin had this to say. This is what he said about this guy. Without mercy or compunction, he brutally murdered anyone and everyone as it suited him and his cartel, at times inflicting the cruelest of pain, forcing relatives to watch their loved ones murdered before he turned his blade on them. So this is a cold-hearted guy. Now, this is a warning. This is your second warning. So this is where it gets real, right? Now, this is a warning. I'm going to be reading some of the things that he had done. So some of the things he did are brutal. So please, if you're sensitive to these things, this is your warning. So I'm telling you right now, okay? I don't go into full detail because I would never do that because some of the stuff that he did is just way too much. I don't know if it's too much for me because I would read onto it because I'm interested in this kind of stuff. This is what I do for fun. I look at true crime and paranormal and all that stuff. But I don't want to read it and put y'all through this if you're just listening to this for fun and you're not into it. If this is an introduction to true crime, this is your best one because I am lighthearted and I do not go into it as much as other podcasts do. This time I do. I get a little bit. So, away from the warning. In July 2016, he was charged and sentenced. Some of the charges were killing while trafficking drugs, conspiracy to distribute marijuana, and employing minors in a drug crime. During the trial, it was revealed that he was a Sicario up until 2013, when he took over the Piedras Negras Plaza. It was called a plaza, but it wasn't a plaza. That's what they called it, the Piedras Negras Plaza. He became known as the Plaza Boss. And during this time, Piedras Negras was and still is a main road in and out of Mexico. It's one of the biggest roads. And just a few miles away is Allende, Coahuila. So they're real close by. So anything that happens in Piedras could potentially happen in Allende. He oversaw over 100,000 kilos of weed pass through and tens of thousands of cocaine pass through. And later testimony, it was revealed that he was responsible for the murders of at least 29 individuals between 2009 and 2015. So, 16 years? He got 29 people? When the other guy spent his whole life and got that many? He was on a spree. So this is where it gets kind of, this is where it gets a little brutal. Third warning. Last chance. Third strike, you're out, okay? In one incident, he dismembered a young girl with an axe and burned her body in front of her parents and laughed at them and said, "This is so you'll remember me." And then he turned to the mother and he did the same thing to her. And then he killed the father. They wanted the father to suffer. He saved him until last. He had apparently crossed them. He did something to them. But watching your entire family with the false hope that you're still going to be alive is beyond brutal. That is the most cold-hearted things I've heard. That's straight out of a movie. He was also part of the massacre in Allende. So, yeah. He took part in that too. So he had a a lot of bodies to his name. Now, I'm going to do a little bit of a deep dive on the cartels. Well, yeah, I'm going to do a little bit of a deep dive. So, for those of you, because this is Los Zetas, and I've talked about Los Zetas before, so let's do a deep dive on them. Now, for those of you that don't know, Los Zetas, they are one of the biggest cartels in Mexico and also the most ruthless cartels. Now, most cartels have some kind of an honor code. They have some kind of moral, but these guys are a different breed of cartel. Yeah, most of the cartels will be like, they'll only take out like the person and then maybe like a direct relative. Nah, the Los Zetas, if you looked at them the wrong way, you were done. So these guys had no heart. They were brutal. They started off as enforcers for the Gulf Cartel. So before they were their own thing, they were hired hands. Most of them, if not all of them at the time, were former military special forces from Mexico's army. Sometime in the 90s, they broke away and operated independently. Gilberto Lascano, aka Z23, was the leader until his death in Allende in October 2012. So he died a year after the Allende massacre. After his death, Miguel Angel Trevino, known as Z40, and his brother Oscar Omar Trevino Morales, known as Z42, took control. In April 2009, the U.S. president declared Los Zetas a credible threat under the Kingpin Act. The Los Zetas is organized in a hierarchical structure with certain groups or cells operating in tiers of command. Its members purchase bulk quantities of narcotics and sell them abroad, as well as other non-Los Zetas drug trafficking operations operating in Mexico. So even if you weren't part of the Los Zetas, you were kind of part of them. If you were selling drugs in their territory, you were basically working for them. In addition to those considered actual members of Los Zetas, any large-scale narcotics trafficking operation in a region controlled by Los Zetas must support and associate with Los Zetas or risk execution. So if you sold drugs and you were big enough in their territory, you paid them. The Los Zetas not only supplied the drugs, marijuana, cocaine, meth, and whatever, to the traffickers, they also charged the traffickers a fee called the quota for the privilege of operating in Los Zetas territory. That fee included cash payments as well as firearms and other munitions, ammunition, magazines, etc. In addition to allowing these traffickers to operate in their territories, the Los Zetas had control of law enforcement entities and political subdivisions within the state of Coahuila, which allowed them to operate with impunity and to obtain real-time intelligence about the movements and location of Mexican military and law enforcement within the state. There's no real recap this time because, most times I started doing recaps at the end of my episodes. There's no real recap because these guys are all killers. I don't know what else to say. There's no like this story, moral of no. These are all killers. Okay, there's no recap. All I gotta say is be careful what you say and to who you say it to. Like I said, there have been influencers that have learned the lesson the hard way. There was also even a guy on the U.S. side that had supposedly stolen from a cartel, and they swooped him up in broad daylight. He was never seen again. Like there's video of it. Like this actually happened. I don't remember where. All I know is that I was in South Texas. So with that, till next time. Stay spooky, everybody. And I guess we're done. Later. This one's 42 minutes. I didn't leave. Do we do an outro? I don't have an outro. I'll make an outro.